What is up, everyone? My name is Jacob Minnick, host of the Behavioral Health Integration Podcast. It is a true pleasure having you all here, and it's a great honor having my mentor, Robert, on the show again. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, super exciting. I'm
Yes,
glad to be
yes. I
here.
know we're going to have a great show. There's so many questions I know many of you have already asked me, and we're going to answer all of those today. And
We're gonna
yeah, just
try.
yes, we are. We're going to work together. That's what this is really all about. This whole process is just collaborating together, because again, like, I call Robert my mentor because he is, because if it weren't for this man, like, I would not be where I am today, with just how to do the approach, do the paperwork. So again, that's why I'm so grateful for him, and he's helped me out so much. So thank you, Robert.
It's always nice to hear.
Yeah,
You're
no,
welcome.
and yeah, absolutely. And we figure we start this a little different than last time, because like last podcast was just a little bit of both. We got to know you more as a person and
Mhm.
the process, but now that was like what, year and a half ago, maybe, I think, when we
Yeah,
last met. It was
it's been a while. Yeah.
yeah. And now I feel like there's a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a refresher time period. I don't know. But just starting off, like, let's just get back to the basics, to a sense of like what circumstances really motivated you to do a private practice, and what may motivate others just to get into private practice as a LADC.
Well, some of this is about systematic issues.
Yeah.
I was working in the field at the time. I was doing my grad program for co-occurring
Mhm.
disorders at the master's level, but I was working as an LADC in a community behavioral health clinic in rural
Yep.
Minnesota. But up until that point, I'd worked at a couple different treatment centers, and honestly, I was feeling the way a lot of people say they feel in the
Mhm.
field. I felt burnt out. My caseloads were
Mhm.
too large. I couldn't give the, truly person-centered attention that we talk about we're supposed to give all the time to
Yeah.
each client, because I had so many clients. How could I keep them all straight in my head? I didn't feel adequately compensated, so I felt, you know, broke, tired, burned out,
Yeah.
all those things. And then one day, when I went to do my post grad hours, I went to a private clinic, and that
Yep.
clinic, at the time, the laws were just changing in Minnesota. They created a new law that LADCs with over 6,000 hours of experience could go into private practice. So
Mhm.
at the time, DHS didn't have all the guidance published that well, and so there was a lot of just it was a lot of things are up for interpretation. We just didn't have a lot of guidance, and it wasn't really necessarily their fault, because it was a new law, and it
Mhm.
takes time for those things to develop. But the way we interpreted the law was that we could basically credential onto a group contract with under our LADC license, and then bill under that instead of just the group contract.
Mhm.
Um, and so, because I was working in private practice, as you know, a lot of times in private practice, depending upon the private practice you work for, they may
Yep.
make an agreement with you that you get a percentage of claims, right? So that's kind of how that was set
Yeah.
up. That worked for a while, and then through that experience, I learned that I was making way more money than even paying a percentage than I was getting an hourly wage working for a treatment center.
Yep.
Well, then one day while I'm in Mexico on vacation,
Yep.
I get a phone call from the office manager. DHS is on the line.
Mhm.
Well, that's not how they intended the law to be
Right.
interpreted. And
Yep.
how they intended it to be interpreted was, if you were going to be an LADC in private practice, you had to be in a solo private practice. You cannot be
Right.
in a group practice of any type. And so
Mhm.
basically, they understood that,
Mhm.
the guidance wasn't really there, and how it happened, and how that even got through, why the insurance companies even put that through the contract in the first place, because the guidance wasn't there. So they basically gave me a choice and said,
Yep.
you need to stop today. And so that was the day I quit my job and I started my business.
Mhm.
That's how it all started, from Mexico.
Well, again, just going back to the salary, I could just so relate. So when this all started, it was like probably 3-4 years ago, right?
Yep.
2019.
Yep.
And again, people, like, this is not exact numbers, but I'm gonna guess right now what an average LADC is probably making, probably 50 to 60 grand a year, give or take,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's crazy. And I mentioned this before. It's just so weird. Like, when I was working at Create, so I had my master's degree, but I didn't quite have my LADC yet. So they really, like, they tried to offer me like 48 grand a year with a master's in mental health and addiction. But they're like, hey, once you get your LADC official, like on the website, we'll give you 50. So it's just like, I have my master's degree, yet you care more, which again, having an LADC is important, but I don't know. It's messed up. And because a part of me wants to say, hey, they should pay the master's level LADC more than the undergrad. They just don't do it. Like treatment centers and facilities do not do that. And again, not to keep going on this, but like they can make the argument, well, you still can't do anything more until you get your LPCC. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to vary from program to program, how they're structured, how they incentivize people. And, you know, that's all going to probably, you know, trace back to what they could bill,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Revenue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just like you said, too, there are many different reasons why people will go to private practice or even leave the field. Too many
Mhm.
clients, the feeling of helplessness, not being able to, I know for me, give my clients the attention they deserve.
Mhm.
And like not making like an adequate amount of money. So just like, why would I stay here in this type of job?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I was faced with. And
Yeah.
I think it was the coming into awareness that now I could do this on my own. It was legal. That's what the trigger was for it. It just needed an event to happen, like the
Yep.
universe often does, that
Right.
put me in a position that gave me a choice where I had to take some sort of action. I had two choices that day, but in my mind, it was I didn't even debate it. I
Right.
just moved on. You know, I was ready.
Well, I said this before. It's like when I first heard about this LADC private practice thing, I was 2019 and I was an intern at Park Avenue. And I swear to God, like my first thought was, wait, LADC's private practice? So I literally pictured a dude like in a basement with his clients, like just doing like group therapy in the basement, which I mean, that's not ethical and obviously that can't happen. But yeah, I didn't know much about it. So just a little history, like that's kind of how I ran into Robert for everyone, all my audience members, because I think you had this Facebook page. Like I don't know how long ago you started the LADC private practice page. Trying to
It's
think.
probably been about 2 years now. Mhm.
Yeah, at least. And I'm like, and I just started my podcast at that time. And I ran across your page. And I'm like, oh, that's something I've always kind of been interested in. But again, I didn't really know much about it. So then I believe that's how I first got a hold of you, like way before I'm even eligible to even do it. I think it was probably like probably at least a year before I can even get started on the paperwork.
Yeah, it was. I remember that.
You
Mhm.
know, but I was just I was just so excited just to be working with you and just learning more. And yeah, it's all great stuff.
I'm glad that was helpful for you. The reason why I started that page in the first place was because
Yeah.
I was fielding a ton of questions individually from people, just word of mouth, right? Knowing I was doing
Yeah.
this from other LADCs, and it was
Hmm.
getting to be too much. It was like constant questions from coming up from all the different media,
Yeah.
for you know, and I'm just like I'm answering the same questions over and over again. Got to create a depository that's just easier for me to manage where I can
Yeah.
just kind of like answer the questions and then say, look here, wherever. And I was hoping at the time like somebody else would do it,
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
but nobody ever did. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. So I did. And
Well,
there
that's
it
what
is.
you told me. Like part of your motivation is, I mean, I know we get along and everything, but you want me kind of to do the same thing eventually down the road, is helping other people because it's just too much work for you. You need help doing this and spreading the
Hmm.
word.
I'm
So,
happy to field questions. I just when it comes to like things that common questions, I prefer it
mhm,
if there's a resource that people can just go and kind of use as a reference, right? Because it just takes some. I need to
mhm,
be able to have balance in my life. So yeah.
absolutely. So I was wondering, did you want to get into like the process of actually becoming one? Because I know some things kind of changed, but
Sure.
like let's just say if there's a new counselor and they're like, "Hey, I saw this podcast. I want to
Hmm.
start this. What do I need to do first?"
I think the most important thing to remember, and maybe especially if you're a student, right,
Yep.
is you have to have the equivalent of 6,000 documented treatment hour experiences,
Mhm.
right? Experience. So group, individual, things like that. That's under supervision.
Mhm.
So you know, if you're a student right now, or maybe you're an ADCT, or you are just post grad, make sure that you're collecting your hours and documenting them along the way. You know, we changed jobs along the way. So keep, if I could go back,
Yeah.
keep records. Okay, keep good records. Always keep records of your hours. Don't wait. You know, every 3 months, I get signatures for hours, and that's what I did, and I would keep them somewhere safe, right? Because you just never know.
Exactly.
You could lose a super. I lost my mental health supervisor. She passed away in the middle of my internship. You know, and I lost about a month's worth of hours. So 6,000 hours, which is about 3 years of full-time work, which is
And I could so
required
do a
in
gripe
order.
session on that. I know we're gonna get into some griping sessions. I'll save that one for later, but I want to hang on to that thought.
Mhm. So that information can be found on the, you know, the DHS provider enrollment website.
Yep.
On the DHS provider enrollment website, and if you just Google LADC private practice DHS, it'll come right up. About halfway down the page, there's a heading that says how to enroll as a licensed professional in private practice to provide said services. It'll list, you know, all the steps, and the first step is the provider enrollment application. That's the most important application you'll fill out, because that's the MA application, the ability to bill Medicaid. You have to be able to bill Medicaid in order to enroll in the commercial insurance. Well, I'm not going to say commercial. In order to enroll in the Medicaid insurance products, so things like Blue Cross, UCare, Hennepin Health, all those that have PMAPs, prepaid medical plans. In order to bill those, you first have to have your MA enrollment letter from provider enrollment. So that application is first.
Brings me back. I remember how excited I was when I came in.
Yeah. And then in that application, they'll require verification of your 6,000 hours. They'll require a copy of your LADC license, right? That's valid. Your Board of Behavioral Health verification, general liability insurance in the amount of $2 million. Although they don't publish this on the DHS site, but I'll tell you from experience, the UCare minimums for insurance is higher than DHS's. So I recommend that you, if you plan on enrolling to bill UCare PMAPs, I recommend that you use the UCare minimums instead, because they're higher than the provider enrollment minimums. So when you go to apply for the ability to bill UCare PMAPs, you're not going to run into your insurance policy isn't high enough, because that's happened to me. Just get it done right up front, because MA will be happy to accept a policy that's higher than what they suggested. And then also keep in mind, and something I had to learn the hard way too, you have to get a certificate for both DHS and yourself, 2 different certificates from that policy. That's your very first step. You have to get through the provider enrollment process so you can bill MA, period. When I did it, it took about 6 months. It was at the very, very beginning. They didn't even know how to process my application.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was thinking about doing a segment with you of like, what would you do differently? But again, like you were like one of the original ones doing it. So there's nothing you could have done, where I could kind of go back now and I probably would have done things differently. I guess the only advice, and you can add into this too, that I would give people trying to do this, one thing I need to work on, I still got it done in a month. It's still a process. Don't get me wrong. Even though some people got it done in 2 weeks, which I'm sure is extremely rare. I pay very close attention to detail about the amount of forms you have, because there's a lot of forms, and what sections they need to be uploaded in. That was my kind of mistake. That's why I kept sending it and kept getting rejected, and that's why it took me a lot longer to get get through that process. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I would say the average, because I help, you know, I do consulting for LADCs going into this that need it, right? And the average wait right now, if the application is complete and you have all your, you know, everything is in order, it's about 30 days. I would agree. Some probably go through in 2 weeks. I would guess those are the people that are completing it thoroughly on the online application, which is the fastest way to do it. And the one I recommend, because then you can track it. If you fax it,
and to all my audience members, that was one person I saw to get it done in 2 weeks, and that's because of a Facebook post. That was one person, but you know.
Yeah. So that's the hardest hurdle to
Yeah.
jump over. But once you get your provider enrollment number with your number on it, right? Which I believe is your type 1 NPI number.
Yeah.
Then therefore you can move forward and apply for the PMAPs.
Yes.
But they're not guaranteed. So the laws changed recently for mental health, where they pretty much have to guarantee it for a mental health provider. It used to be that they could just deny you and say, well, we have plenty of mental health providers in the area.
Yeah.
But in Minnesota now, they can't do that for mental health providers. I don't think that's the case for SUD providers, not that I've seen.
UCare is being freaking stingent right now. They denied me, not trying to interrupt you, but yeah, like some will deny you to you. And when you brought up UCare, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to apply for them, but they keep denying me. They're telling me like they have too many telehealth providers and.
So depending upon their reason, right, you may need to adjust your strategy. Because mental health providers can't get denied, and I know that you're about to get your independent mental health license, my suggestion to you was apply as a mental health provider once you have your independent license, get the contract, because once you have the contract, even if it's just a mental health contract, you can add the subcodes.
So you're saying they cannot deny you if you're mental health?
Once you have a contract, you have a contract.
Yeah.
But
they have to give you, okay.
They I mean, you have the contract. It's just a matter of them amending the contract, right? It's not a creation of a new contract, unless we're talking about Medica, but that's a different topic.
Yeah. It's a great process, I tell you.
So that is how, if I were you, I would work around that problem.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to have that option, because not everybody listening today is going for their mental health degree, right?
Right. Yeah, and so correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like obviously that is the biggest hurdle, and then after that, then you start applying for the PMAPs, like obviously the Medica, UCare, Blue Cross Blue Shields, and so forth, Hemp and Health, and that you go to a different website to do, right?
Yes, and I would say that Hennep and Health, South Country, and Prime West are three that are open enrollment. So you'll get those for sure. There'll be no denials. All the rest of them are.
You're saying they
go through an approval process. What's that?
You're saying they have no standards?
The standard is that you're a Medicaid enrolled provider with MA,
and then you have a pulse.
Yeah, but you already are if you're applying, right? You have your letter. I wish they all were like that, but they're not. Maybe we'll get there some point.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if you're really serious about this, think about, and now this is a little bit more about marketing, but think about the demographics. Think about where your clients are going to come from. Where do you have your relationships in the field, right? Who are going to be your referral sources? Courts, probation officers, treatment center, whoever they are. What counties are they located in? And then go to the PMAP map that the state publishes every year. Every year they publish a new one to let us know what the PMAPs are going to be for the next year for every county. Look and see what PMAPs are in those counties that you're likely to get clients from, and you definitely want to try to enroll in those pairs.
But also, it's not like I get the marketing aspect you brought up, but it's also being true to who you are as a person. Like everybody has a particular niche, so use it, take advantage of it. I remember you telling me, like, again, I'm used to working with like the addiction population in prison and jails. So you told me talk to the county workers, talk to the probation officers, call them, email them.
Yes.
Put in the effort.
Yeah, you got to build your relationships in the field, because you're going to need a stream of referrals, right, to stay in business. So, there are a lot of advantages to being a private practice provider versus a treatment program. So really, fine tune your message and then repeat it, get it out there, right?
Well, isn't it also based on your values too? Because like you can have a strategy. You could put this even on your website, like I'm a harm reduction counselor, or I'm abstinence based, and then you can better promote that. Or you could take my angle where I'm both. I respect harm reduction and sobriety based. Like me personally, I'm not a one shoe fits all type guy. I'm open to a lot of different types of interventions. So I market that. Some may not like that, though. That's the thing. You got to be true to who you are.
Right. I mean, what's the point of going into private practice if you're not going to do what what aligns with your heart, right?
Yep.
So, this is one of the things that I struggled with working at treatment programs was I was
Mm,
bound to a certain way of doing things. So for instance, it was always abstinent based. It always had to be abstinent based. So we discharge people, right?
mm-hmm.
I never believed in that.
Yep.
That was always a problem for me, right? But when I went into private practice, now I have the choice. I can do both harm reduction and abstinence based
Mm-hmm.
upon the client and their needs and other factors. But so I talk about that. I talk about using harm reduction approaches when it's appropriate, using abstinence based approaches when it's appropriate, right?
Right.
And being that flexible, and that will open you up to a wider range of possible referrals too, because you're much more flexible. I was talking to someone today at the county about sometimes I'll get a client that is in the legal system and required to be absent for a while. All interventions for the absent based approach have failed over a long period of time, and they're just not
Mm.
ready. Readiness for change just hasn't moved enough.
Yep.
So the court moves them to, another court where abstinence isn't required. Well, now I can shift my treatment plan from abstinence to
Yeah.
harm reduction, and I don't have to discharge them and tell them to go find another program. The
Yes.
continuity of care, right? And staying with one provider, that's really valuable. And that's
Right.
something that another advantage that, in private practice. So you get to follow them
Mm-hmm.
through the ups, the downs, their whole journey, whatever it is. And I think that's a huge advantage for some people.
It really is, and I love what you said about, like, building relationships and referrals, because Robert, you've helped me out so much with, like, getting clients, and then you put me in touch with also people that help me with clients, and if it weren't for, let's say, you 2, I wouldn't have any. I mean, it's hard out there. Like, I have a Psychology Today, yeah, I got a website, but it's not as easy as people think to obtain people. Like Psychology Today, I'm sure there's certain things you could do to, like, market yourself, but, like, that for some people, it just doesn't help that much. So again, like Robert said, like really build your relationships in the field.
Yeah. People need to know who you are and can they trust
Hmm.
you. I mean, when I refer to an addiction prescriber, for instance,
Yeah.
I refer to very specific people because I know who they are,
Hmm.
and I know that their approaches, their interventions, their bedside manner aligns with my business values,
Right.
right? And so it makes sense. But that only happened because I built those relationships.
Right. Right. And another thing too, when you're going on this, let's just say professional adventure, there's another aspect of like, and it's kind of cool. You're thinking about like how you're going to design your treatment service, what your value is going to be. You have to figure out your own schedule, your own hours, which I thought was kind of cool because I don't know, there's just something about that freedom that it just makes you feel amazing as a professional. Like, I don't know if it's like a power thing, but it's just like I have the ability to do what I want this field and how to impact people. So it's like, okay, I want to do telehealth, or I want to do 3 days a week with clients in groups, or I want a facility, etc. Like you get to plan all that out. And I just think that's super cool. And again, an opportunity LADC's never had until recently.
Yeah, and you got to like balance that out with like client what the needs are of the clients that are available to you, right?
Right.
But yes, absolutely. Like I can't tell you how long I dealt with imposter syndrome when I first started with this.
Okay.
And um, and you have to be able to self discipline to some degree, right? I mean, all
Yeah.
of a sudden going from always having an employer that structured your schedule for you,
Yeah.
or there were consequences to now all of a sudden you have complete creative freedom of that can be overwhelming for some people. And it took me a little time to figure out like what worked for me, you
Hmm.
know. And I really struggled with at first I was 5 days a week because I thought like I had that old thinking like I had to do a lot. It was
Like,
from all that conditioning, right? I had to do a lot or I wasn't valuable.
wait, you did 5 groups like every day,
No,
like,
I
or
just
once a day?
I would still did the three groups, but I would see clients on Friday too,
Oh,
right?
okay. Okay. Yep.
And then finally, it dawned on me that that was old conditioning from old employers, and I needed to shed that, and I needed balance in my
Yeah.
life, right? And I
Yep.
get to choose what balance looks like. So, what works for me?
Yep.
And I decided I really need 3 days off. So,
That's
I cut Friday off, and I just moved everything Monday through Thursday, and it's been fine.
And again, I'm just so in love with that freedom. And what's that saying? Like Superman saying, or it's like, what comes great responsibility, our power becomes, you know what I'm saying, right? Like the more like power you have, the more responsibility you need. And I totally butchered that line. I totally butchered it, but it's cool.
The
It's
more power
just,
comes with more responsibility.
there
Yeah,
we go.
they're parallel. Yeah,
Spider-Man, maybe. I don't know.
yeah. So you do have to have some discipline, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
do.
But I just
Yeah.
love it because, like, let's just say, like, I'll throw out my business, whatever. It's just like, I got some clients, but I don't really have enough clients to really get groups going. So I remember, like, with your help, you're like, well, you don't have to right now. You have the ability to choose the groups. But here's the thing: it's like, okay, I plan on doing groups. Let's just say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever. But it doesn't mean I have to go into that schedule right away. I could probably just choose, well, I know originally I said this, but let me just do groups on Monday for a little bit until I get more clients. Then I can get more power, more consistent.
Yeah, remember, we're not a 245G, we're not a licensed program by DHS, right? We're not being compelled to follow ASAM criteria exactly, or,
Mhm.
the ASAM, which would tell you exactly how many hours a week, basic area, blah, blah, blah. You should use it
Right.
as a guideline for best practices, and I certainly do.
Mhm.
But if you're not able to do a group right away, and that client needs a lot of help right away, then it's totally appropriate to say, I'm going to do individuals 5 days a week for a while until they stabilize.
Yeah.
Is you're the clinician. You're the one that has to
Mhm.
justify the interventions at the end of the day and build your clinical conceptualization and be able to say,
Mhm.
defend. I always ask myself, like, this went before a court. Can I defend this?
Yeah.
Were
Yeah.
these interventions appropriate for the severity of need, right?
Yeah.
For the needs at the time, for the level of care needed, and and if I can't say yes to that question, then I don't move forward. I really rack my brain and go, okay, what else do I need to change first before I move forward?
Right. Right.
So you
Right.
can do it however you need to do it, and most clients are not. I mean,
Preach.
most don't like group anyway.
Exactly. Well, isn't that what you told me to like really sell what we do to like
Yeah, I
compete
mean,
against treatment centers because some clients just don't like or they're sicker groups. They've been to
yeah,
like 14 treatment centers. They just
I'm
want one-on-ones.
right. And let me back up. Group is important though, because there's a lot of
Yes.
things that happen psychodynamically in a group setting
Mhm.
that don't happen in an individual setting. So it absolutely is important. And there are going to be cases where it should absolutely be needed. And if you do the assessment, you build your case conceptualization, and you really think that that's going to be
Yeah.
an immediate need, then you should refer out.
Yep. Yep. So just to clarify with everyone here, again, I might have said this earlier, but I feel like this is gonna be a good episode because you're getting like two viewpoints. Again, Robert's my mentor. Robert, you've been doing this for like 3, 4 years now, right?
Private practice, yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
Robert's helped me since day one. So I'm like 3 months in. So I'm kind of like a half breed. I'm still working at a treatment center. Or hybrid. I'm a hybrid, but I'm half in, half out. So I got like 3 clients in my private practice. So you're getting both lenses right now. And that's why again I feel like this is gonna be a great episode because you're gonna get like the newbies perspective and then the veterans perspective,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um God, what was I gonna say? But there's just so many concepts to really think about. And one thing is me being a beginner owner, yeah, I feel like I'm doing an okay job about being consistent. But one thing we all have to keep in mind, yeah, you have to build good relationships with again the probation officers, but you got to build good relationships with the client, and you have to be
Mhm.
consistent with the clients too.
Yeah.
You can't
So
flake on them.
yeah, well, right. I mean, what's your therapeutic lens, right? So now maybe I'm going to the mental health realm a little
Go
bit
for
more
it.
here, but I tend to use a lot of positive psychology. I
Mhm.
don't believe in punitive measurements.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with them at all, so for lots of different reasons. So that's my approach. Now that may work for other people, but um, I tend to feel like it's more about like being a supportive person,
Yeah.
but in a healthy way and role modeling and demonstrating that, right? This is a complicated, complex disease.
Yeah.
People use to feel better, to feel normal, to escape. I mean, right? Underlining mental health diagnoses. I mean, at the end of the day, what's going on that's causing them to want to escape.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get there if they are afraid of you.
You need to show them that you care. And then going back to you're reliable, you're consistent, because I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I've had a client who, again, was a little bit flaky in the beginning. He would miss a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever. But I still called him. I still text him, check up on him.
Mhm.
I showed him that I was there, even though he wasn't attending my sessions. I showed him
Mhm.
that I cared about him. I called his probation officer, diversion officer, and now he's one of my most consistent clients. We meet 2 times a week. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
I've had
kinda
that
sick at that
happen.
time period, but I'm
Mhm.
wondering if, like, what I showed him, like, I'm consistent, I'm with you. And I showed him maybe that he could trust me to some degree, and maybe that's why he's being more consistent. I don't know.
Possibly. I've had that happen a
But
few times, and that's also happened to me where they come back and then they've done really well.
yeah.
As long as you're also looking at the mental health side and making sure that this isn't some sort of like personality disorder stuff, right?
Right,
But if
right.
that's not the case, and that's all it took, he just needed to build that therapeutic alliance, that
Yep.
trust. It was established, and now all of a sudden, okay, I could work with him,
Yeah.
then great. And it does happen, but that's what happens a lot of what I experienced
Yeah.
in treatment programs a lot was that would happen. Somebody would take off on, not a lapse, but a relapse,
Mhm.
and they would disappear for 4, 5, 6 days. I would continue trying to contact them, but I knew them
Right.
from my assessment. I knew them from working with them for a while. I knew this was a pattern. I knew that in 2 days, they like clockwork, they were going to be back. And in staffing, everybody's like discharge, discharge, discharge.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, but they're going to
Yep.
be back in 48 hours. I guarantee, I promise you,
Yeah.
they're going to be back in 48 hours, right? So,
That's that's what I love about our thing being private practice, because we may have clients that will be just using every day. And especially if we're the harm reduction approach, like, I'm not going to judge a client for that. Like, I'm going to appreciate and care about their honesty in that situation. And my concern is, like, I'm the practitioner, okay with that, but I tell my client, like, okay, what's your probation officer going to think? I'm cool with you using it every day as long as we, like, you're safe and coming from a therapeutic modality. But
right. So this is tough. It doesn't make sense to me to take a harm reduction approach if there is a legal collateral like
okay.
probation who that's not going to accept it, right?
Hmm.
Because then they're just if they end up in jail, they're not in treatment. So
Right.
some of this might be advocacy for harm reduction on your end to that PO.
But it's
And
so weird. There's so many different probation officers. Like, I've known
yeah,
some probation officers that don't care. Let's say if a client smokes weed, and this was before it was
right,
legal, they didn't care. And then some POs are like so hyper focused on any use, they're done, they're out. You have to know who you're
right.
working with too.
Well, that's evolving with the laws changing. At the end of the day, my position is with medical marijuana is it's not my call, it's the doctor's call.
Hmm.
Um, certainly if they have a mental health disorder and it's clear to me that even medical marijuana causes psychotic symptoms, then I'm going
Yeah.
to address that every time I see it in session. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm
Yeah.
observing on the MSE. This is how you're presenting to me. This is going to, right. But I do
Right.
it as a therapeutic intervention, and I just keep trying to nudge them along to gain insight. I mean, sometimes that's all we can do because we can't. I mean, we could certainly get a release. We can inform the doctor that they're in treatment and all those things. But we
Right.
can't tell the doctor what to do,
Yep.
right? We have to be very
Yep.
careful here about our lines.
You could be in group with a client. I've like so just often with the medical marijuana where they'll be so high that they're not even following the lesson plan, the homework assignment, the lecture. They're just like,
Hmm.
just not in the moment right now. And let's say they do have like an anxiety disorder or PTSD. It's like, okay, fine, but are they using it in the correct way where it's controlling their anxiety like symptoms so they can focus, let's say in group? Or are they overdoing it where they're not even here in the
Hmm.
moment and they're not going to get any therapeutic benefits from it?
Right. So then we're talking about mismanagement of a substance again, right? Prescribed or
Right.
not. And now we have a whole lot of work to do intervention wise.
Yeah.
Psychoeducation, working on the stages of change, working on insight, all those things.
Yeah.
Since I only do telehealth in a scenario like that, I may, I set expectations up front. If you show up high to group, I'm going to remove you. and then I'm going to follow up with you right afterwards, right? If it were an in-person situation, obviously that's a whole different approach, because you have to assess if this person's even safe to drive home, and like
Yeah.
there's a whole nother thing, right?
Yep.
But certainly, I mean, there has to be like consequences, or they're
Yeah.
not going to behavioral modification, right?
It's a line. It's a boundary.
We're
It's a
going to
line.
modify behavior.
Yeah.
There has to be, you do this happens. You do that, and it has to be consistent.
Yeah.
So
that could be another issue with treatment centers too. Like directors, supervisors, like all needing to be on the same page regarding issues like those too. So,
but my group is a mix of people on harm reduction approaches and absent-based approaches, which I think works because of telehealth. There are times when people are, high or struggling. But there is my thing is, as long as they're awake and they're actively participating, and they're talking about what they're struggling with and what's happening with them, I'm probably not going to remove them, because we're working through it as a group, right?
Okay.
We're working, and if you're navigating that appropriately, it can be a therapeutic benefit to everybody.
Right.
So it's how you navigate it, right? As a group facilitator. So I guess some of this depends on how good of a facilitator you are and how confident you are in those skills.
And we all have different definitions of coherent, being active, where someone could be barely writing the assignment. So yeah, you could say they're doing the work, but then they're just like dozing off after they do the assignment. Or are they kind of just like looking at the instructor, but again, not really saying anything, but they appear that they're kind of following the lesson,
Sure.
And
there
pick
are
your
ways
battles
to kind of figure that out.
And there is such a pick of battles mindset there too.
Sometimes.
But it's just it's hilarious. Like if you call a client out, like you're with them one-on-one after a group, and it's so obvious that they're way too high that they couldn't even follow the plan, but they'll just lie, they'll deny it. Like, no, I wasn't high. It's like, what's the point of keep getting into this argument with the client at that point? Like, dude, I'm not gonna argue. You were baked out of your mind. No, it was.
So right.
What's the point?
And they may or may not remember whatever you talk about, or they may remember it differently. So in situations like that, I will just be very clear about, this is why I held you after group.
Yeah.
This is what I observed on the MSC, and I'll use clinical language. Right?
Yeah, I apologize for the bank comment. That wasn't very clinical, people.
Yeah, your affect was flat. Your presentation was departed from the median. Yep. This is how they're not going to understand half that language, but they're not going to remember any.
Well, this is what I see from you
either. But I can document I said that, and then I'll clearly say to them at the end, I can see you're struggling. And I almost always say, when addiction is active, one of the primary symptoms is dishonesty. Yeah. And so I need you to go home now and take care of yourself. And then I'll talk about how you're going to take care of yourself. Right. Yeah. And then tomorrow, or whenever it is, schedule that follow-up right away. I want you to come back. We're going to talk about this when your head is clear. Yeah. For now, I just want you to focus on self-care. Drink lots of fluids. How are you getting home safely? Those kinds of things have to be priority. Yeah. All that other stuff can wait until their head is clear.
And again, not to get sidetracked, for all you clinicians like watching right now, I've made the mistake too. Like, when you see a situation, don't let your emotions take over. Really say to yourself, hey, can this wait a little bit before you blow off the net? Because I'm not going to lie, I've seen some things, and I've not interacted professionally or clinically in the right way to a client. And I regret it, and I learned from that experience. So again, don't feel like you need to go into action right away. Maybe process it, depending on the situation, of course.
Yeah. And you may have different feelings about how urgent a situation is.
Right. Yep.
So knowing the basics of crisis assessment can be helpful. Make sure you're assessing for suicidal ideation.
Yep.
Doing a safety plan if needed. Making sure they can get home safe. I've gotten a lot more, what's the word? Not much shakes me.
Right.
I've seen, I used to get really worked up about that stuff and concerned, but it doesn't do anybody any good.
Well, how about this one? I got a great example for you. Sleeping in group. So many counselors have so many different mindsets about this. It's like, you sleep once, you're out. If I have to wake you up 3 times, you're out. or I'm pulling you right away because that's a trigger for people. If they say you
Right.
sleeping nodding, you're going to trigger that person. Get the heck out of my group. Or
Right.
you're disrespecting me right now by sleeping in my
Right.
group. You're disrespecting me.
Well, we want to make sure that it's not a medical reason first, right? So we want to
Right.
make sure it's not an overdose on methadone. We want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
it's not a Suboxone problem. We want to make sure we're doing all that first,
Yep.
and asking the questions in a non-confrontational way, right? Because it
Mhm.
might be something like that. And
Yep.
then if that's the case, then we have to deal with it in a different way.
Right.
But if it's simply, I work too much because I'm not managing my time right,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get enough sleep, and you give them a warning, get up, get some coffee, do what you need to sit up straight,
Right.
stay awake, and it keeps happening, then yeah, I would remove them. Yeah, there needs to be consequences for
Right.
actions, and a lot of our clients are not used to that,
And
but
other
there has to be.
clients see that though. They see that. They see you. They're like, okay, well, so and so lets them get away with this and that. They may lose respect for you or the group. And
Well, they'll try to get away with it, is what happens.
true.
Happens on
Yep.
telehealth too.
Okay.
And
Yep.
then it builds up, and then you have to address the whole group, and it just becomes a thing.
I again would like to thank Robert for being an awesome guest for part 1, laying the foundations for LADCs in private practice. Please stay tuned for part 2 coming soon. I just want to thank all of my listeners for your support, and just to inform everyone that the information expressed in this episode was not meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. If you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues, please seek the care of a medical doctor or a licensed mental health therapist. And if anyone has any further questions for me, you can reach me at my email address, behaviorhealthintegration121@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jacob Minig, where you will find more educational posts on psychotherapy, trauma, and addiction. And finally, you can follow me on my website, which is behaviorhealthintegration.org. I also want to inform everyone that there is a great new device out there called CalmiGo. It's a breathing device meant to control and manage your breathing rates and the depth of your breathing as you inhale and exhale to again help relieve any type of anxiety and stress-like symptoms. And if you do put the BHI podcast into the promo code, you get $30 off this amazing device. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and you will not be disappointed. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a good day. Bye.